My name is Taffy Hunter. I'm a single mom of 3. I'm a domestic violence survivor and blessed by God to be moving on with my life.
I ended up being in a homeless situation because of domestic violence. As I was moving my things to move in with my ex, we were in the heat of domestic violence, and it was progressively getting worse. The cycle was getting worse and worse. Somebody from my church kind of intervened and took me out of that situation, and I had been hospitalized a couple times.
Back in February of 2010, my 3 children and I fled New Mexico, and a 14-year marriage that was verbally, emotionally, financially, and physically abusive.
Things were emotionally and psychologically abusive from the very start. It wasn't until about 1.5 years in that it really became physical, but I kept thinking that it was something wrong with me, that I wasn't doing my job as a housekeeper, that I wasn't taking care of the kids properly, that I wasn't living up to my half of the marriage. It wasn't until 2011 that I really started realizing the problem wasn't with me. I'd become so depressed that I was suicidal.
Domestic violence affects not only the wife. That's how we normally think. We think of the man as the abuser to the wife, but we tend to forget that children are involved. And unfortunately, I grew up in an environment where my dad was extremely abusive. When he drank, he became violent. And so children become also targets of an abuser in a domestic violence situation.
I think one of the reasons why I'm so involved in this is because I want the intergenerational cycle of abuse to stop.
With 2 carry-on bags, I took off in the middle of the night, and after 27 hours of travel, I arrived in Spokane and came to the shelter.
I was in dire straits, in a very bad situation from, first of all, domestic violence that was not only my abuser but also to my family. I had to recognize that my family also were part of my abuse.
How Women's Healing and Empowerment Network got started. It got started because of a growing need to address the issue of domestic violence and sexual abuse from a Christian perspective. Many years ago, I was working at a secular shelter. I was the administrator there, the executive director, and I started sheltering many Christian women, and God just impressed me that I needed to start a ministry where individuals can understand that God loves them and He does not want them to be in an abusive relationship. And so the network grew out of a need to address this issue from a Christian perspective.
It was about in 1995 that I first became aware that Dr. Mabel Dunbar was doing some work on domestic violence in the home. And I was very interested in the subject because I'm a pastor's wife, and at least 2 times before that time, 2 women had come to me with severe domestic violence going on in their homes. And these were people that sat on the front row in church, and it seemed like everything was normal. And when I read this article, I felt like jumping up and down, because this made me happy to see someone willing to finally come forward and make the church, the Christian world, aware that this is a serious problem.
We do know after research that the incidence of domestic violence in the world is the same as in the church. The statistics are the same. We also know that the abuse among men is on the increase.
My experience with the We Network started when I read Mabel Dunbar's book about domestic violence in the church, and it really impacted me because I feel like it's really important that people understand that it's not something that is found just outside of the church, but it's a problem everywhere.
The goal of Women's Healing and Empowerment Network is to provide programs and services where individuals who are dealing with domestic violence and sexual abuse can find healing and empowerment through Christ. Our programs are faith-based, and so we try to let individuals know that God does not want them to be abused, and more importantly, we want them to recognize that true healing only comes from Jesus Christ.
I think the We Network is really focused on the people. I think it's really focused on education, and it's just very personable. I think that Mabel has set up a network that really inspires women and families to be as healthy as possible within the church.
Well, first of all, since I've been here for 7 months, let me say, I came here in December, it is now July. So I've been here for 7 months, and I have to say, this program has allowed me to give me stability. I have not had to put out any type of expense in terms of housing, food, in terms of anything at all. So that relieved a whole gamut of problems that I was suffering from, which was housing. And so once I came here to Women's Healing and Empowerment Network, it allowed me to become focused in terms of my future, putting my future together.
I was surprised because all of the research that I'd done on shelter programs, it was a limited amount of time. You could stay there maybe 30 days, or you're sharing a room with 3 or 4 other women and their children, and there's no privacy, and there's no counseling. You have to arrange for that separately, and I certainly didn't have the money for that. And what was great about this program was we did 2 months of 20 hours a week of counseling.
As I look towards the future, my goals are, I am completely starting my life over right now, and I'm very fortunate that this program has allowed me to, stay past the 2 months, and there's such great resources in this town, so I had to reach out to a lot of resources that I wouldn't have reached out to if I was back in my situation in California.
I was getting my education, dealing with some legal problems, health problems, and all those things. I was able to start putting everything together. I'm now in the community college, getting scholarships and moving forward with my education, moving forward with my medical conditions in terms of health, because the state of Washington has allowed me to be on disability, which was unheard of in any other state. It's just been a whole gamut of positive things since I've been in the program.
I'd always wanted to go to college. So a month after I got to the States, I took my GED. A couple months later, I took my SAT. And a month or 2 after that, I was accepted into college. I was accepted into the college family housing, and I was able to move on. And the shelter, without the shelter and without the counseling program that Mabel provides through the Women's Healing and Empowerment Network, I would not be where I am. I would probably be homeless right now, still dealing with all the emotional issues.
Abuse does not stop at any culture, it doesn't stop at any religion, at any socioeconomic background. Any one of us can deal with it at any time. And I think now is the time in our lifespan, hopefully, we will start addressing this issue, because it is destroying our generation. And there's a quotation that talks about how the enemy has an agenda, and his agenda is to destroy children, because children grow up to be hurting individuals, and they pass on this affliction to the next generation.
God cares. He cares, and He's there, and He will carry you. He will hold you in those moments in the middle of the night when you feel like your life is ending. He will wrap His arms around you. He will fix your life. Your life is not over. It's not ended. There is hope. Hope sometimes can hold us captive, and that's why we stay in these relationships for so long. But He has a plan, and He promises that in His Word, that He has a plan for you. So hold on to that and reach out to Him, and reach out to the network, and to the support that you can find that He offers you.